People want stories. You know, this is the same as somebody saying, this is the worst thing I've ever smelled. And you go, let me smell that.
Butterscotch
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 170 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm the bit baker.
I'm Sam, and I'm the man who makes pictures.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is Sunktuber Bubbly Force 2018.
Yes, that is a date.
Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything could happen on this show. There's going to be profanity, and we're going to talk about, kinds of adult sort of things. Like business.
Yeah.
Self-improvement.
Yeah. So if you are a wee babby, then you can scoot on out, go play your Switch or your Game Boy or one of those ring hoops that you can roll down the street.
Yes.
Any of those three popular children's toys of today.
Yep.
All right.
The stick and hoop.
Yeah. So on to the news. For starters, we'd like to thank our Ko-Fi supporters. These are people who have donated to support the podcast over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. We've got some notes here from these folks. So we got Rescue2 says, do hamsters secretly make all your video games and you are just pretending to be the ones who make them? Great question. On to the next one. Rosa Evan. 3 coffees for the brothers. Cheers. Thank you very much. Devin Smith says, I can't wait for Shenana Con. I already bought my ticket and I got off work to travel up. You guys are hilarious. LOL. Smiley face.
Amazing.
I only hope my games will be as good as yours someday. Well, thank you. That's very nice.
That's very kind.
And also we have a number of recurring supporters who are donating monthly, and we appreciate that quite a lot. All right, on to studio news. Of course, Shenana Con, as we just heard. It's happening.
It's going to be good. It's October 20th.
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 The 20th.
20th.
It's a Saturday, and it'll be sort of a 4-ish hour event where you get to kind of play Levelhead before literally anybody else on the planet.
Yeah, we do now have an actual sort of timeline of events, though I think it is not on the website yet.
Yes.
Although, actually, we're recording on Monday. This comes out Wednesday.
Who knows?
Perhaps it
the
will
website being meet.bscotch.net.
Yeah, but meet as in meet a person. But not as in, like, turn them into meat.
Right.
But
just to get to know
I have
them.
been meated.
Yeah. So go to meet.bscotch.net to get in on the Shenana Con.
What's the past tense of meat?
As in to turn someone into
Is it
meat?
a cone? Did I just make up a cone?
A cone?
Like a Zen cone?
Oh.
You know? Not a cone like not a cone like the 3D object.
This conversation
like
has become very
past tense meat.
past tense meat. But
Matt.
you're talking about.
I mean, it's Matt.
But you're talking
Meat is a
about-
verb, as in meat is in to meet a person.
Meat as in the noun as a verb.
as in to turn someone into meat.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So is that also?
Well,
meant,
here's
I
the
guess,
thing.
as well?
People already are meat. So if you turn somebody into meat, you haven't done anything at all.
But I think you got to turn them more inside out to have them just be.
That
obviously
just
meat.
makes the meat available.
That's true.
Shop is open.
The shop is the meat shop is ready for business. So we're going to be doing a live podcast at that event as well. And
somebody asked if we would also stream that thing on Discord while we're doing it, and the answer is I don't know.
I don't know. Probably not though, because that sounds complicated.
It might be complicated,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's on the table as a thing we will consider trying to attempt.
We'll look at it with our eyes.
But mostly, you're just going to have to
question
be there. Unfortunately, actually, fortunately,
yeah, definitely. Fortunate.
yeah, that's where that $15 ticket gets you. It gets you that early access podcast listen. You know. And also there will be food. So the $15 also goes into that.
But probably most importantly, you'll get to play Levelhead.
Yeah, definitely. Most importantly.
Well, I don't know. The food's going to be pretty good.
It is going to be pretty good.
So that's happening. Ticket sales close on October 13th. We have limited availability because, it's a smallish space.
Because the world is only so large.
The world is only so big. There's only 7 billion people. So get your tickets if you want them. That's meet.bscotch.net. Also, in the news, we were on another podcast.
Yeah.
This is our first guest appearance as sort of – we've done individual guest appearances on podcasts, on other people's podcasts.
Although not for quite a while, I don't think.
Not for quite a while.
I think it was mostly right after
Crash
Crashlands. We did a bunch of them, and then that was it.
It's something we don't do that often. It's kind of a leverage thing, I think. Like podcasts tend to – especially game dev podcasts tend to have a pretty limited reach, and it does take, a good hour or more of your time to sit down and do it. But it's also a lot of fun. So, we'll dip our toe in every now and then.
Especially getting all three of us into one. it's always just a lot more fun because it's basically just our podcast somewhere else. Which is
the three of us
overpower.
We basically just crashed this podcast, and they would ask us a question, and then we just kind of bloviated for like 10 minutes.
As we do.
And they'd be like, nice. And then on to the next question. So that was Game Dev's Quest, which I believe that episode comes out
Monday,
which is today, the day we're recording, which is 2 days ago. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out.
Time's confusing. It's September. Who cares?
Time is just a social construct, you know?
I guess we really need a podcast time zone so that when we talk about time, people just can like go online to the Butterscotch, the Coffee with Butterscotch podcast time zone converter.
We got to make that Wonope calendar.
What does it
where
mean?
every day is a month, every year is 3 weeks.
Did we decide what the origin of history is for that calendar? Like what?
Who made it?
Who made it?
I don't know. No, as in is it the beginning? Like where does time start at 0?
Oh, 1970.
Yep. I was gonna
So we're using the epoch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The epoch.
I listened to a
or we could use the date of the birth of the studio.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Then we have to do a bunch of math though.
No, we'll just have computers do it.
That's a good point.
I listened to a Moth radio hour and it was
a moth radio hour.
Have you listened to the Moth before?
No. So I assume this is a giant talking moth.
No, it's a story. It's just a storytelling event. So people show up and they tell a particular story that they've sort of crafted.
It's usually themed around some.
That is vetted ahead of time.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So they're all really good. So this one was this daughter wanted to spend more time with her dad. She's 9. And so she came up with a list of 50 questions for him because he's like a philosopher writer type. He's always in his head. And one of them was time. What is it? Why? Why? And I was like, yeah. Why?
I actually
what is this?
I had a very brief conversation with my wife. We were on a road trip this weekend, and I was like, if time started going faster all of a sudden, would we notice?
I mean, no.
She was like, that doesn't matter. I was like, that's a good point. Because,
she's practical.
Because if time moved faster, we would be experiencing it faster.
Yeah, as long as
everything would just be the same.
As long as we kept up.
But I think a better question is, can time move faster? Does that even – because even if it because time – that means that time itself experiences some additional kind of time.
Well,
which it can move with varying
that's because we are moving through it.
Or it's moving through us.
Right. So that's like saying, what if space moved faster? Because it's a dimension that we exist in, is three-dimensional space. But is space moving, or are we just moving through it?
Well, it's probably a better question is, what if space were bigger? Because it's you got to go along the dimensions that are available.
It is bigger.
It is always bigger.
That's the thing about space.
But time can also get bigger.
It can also get slower, though. Right?
Can it?
Yeah, that's not what Einstein's thing was all about. It's like if you go real fast, then time moves real slow.
No, you
experience time.
No, it's that you are moving slower through time.
If you're going fast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that why when you enter a flow state, when you're working really hard, because your brain's just like going fast?
Yeah.
And this is why
time ceases to have meaning.
And this is why when you microwave your lunch, time completely stops.
Yes, there's 2 microwaves in our building downstairs, and every so often there's like a small line.
We'll be working all morning, 4 hours. It's like boom, blows past.
It's just gone now.
And we're like, all right, at lunchtime, let's go. So everyone runs down there, and then we sort of shove our stuff in the microwaves. And it's just a minute and a half to heat everything up. But for some reason, it's hours.
You can feel you can feel yourself aging. You know how there's those people talk about when you travel at the speed of light. If you like 4 years or something, or I guess like 4 minutes near the speed of light, and then come back to Earth, then like 6,000 years will have passed or something
crazy
like that.
thing,
Yeah. So it will be as if.
It's not quite that dramatic, but it is dramatic.
Well, if you go at the speed of light, then I think it's infinite, right? Then like you would just the universe.
It depends on how long you go. Because if you only left for 4 minutes, then everybody else would have aged for 4 minutes, and that's it. But you would have not aged at all,
right?
So it's more if you go on a trip to 80 light years away to a star, and then come back and manage to do that in like a few hundred years or something like that.
Then thousands of years have passed.
Then just that 80 years will have passed or whatever, but not for you,
right?
What?
Yeah. So you would experience so many years, and everybody else would experience 1,000 times.
Yeah, it's one of those things that every time I sit down, I have to rework through the logic of it, because it makes sense. Like once you get to the end of the logic chain of which direction things go, then I'm like locks back in. I'm like, oh yes, okay, right. That's how it works. But even right now, I'm trying to remember how it works. And I'm like, I know we're all off here. The idea is right, but the details I can't quite.
It's a little obtuse, but I think the strategy that we've come up with is we're just going to get a bank of microwaves and put them in the studio.
Yeah, if you want to get a lot of work done, then just be microwaving something and waiting for it.
Because it will give you what appears to be like 18 times the normal amount of
You're
time.
like, I need to write a novel. I'm going to quickly
set up a microwave bank.
Quickly just nuke a Hot Pocket for 4 minutes. And your novel's done. By the time that Hot Pocket is ready.
Come back. Everyone has aged by 80 years, but not you.
Not you. You're fresh.
And your novel is done.
Time has passed you by. You don't even know. Like everybody's carrying around weird smartphones that are now disc-shaped and have screens on both sides.
Yeah.
It's wild. The future's wild.
But you're not. This is a Futurama situation.
But the internet doesn't exist anymore. You just throw your discs like frisbees to communicate with each other. So there's a lot of disc catching.
Well, yeah, you write on them with a Sharpie, and then you throw
right. It just is a piece of glass that you throw as a frisbee.
Yeah. Well, as I understand it, all technology is trending toward people just carrying around smooth panes of glass. So that does track.
Yep.
But then eventually we'll all just be smooth panes of glass.
Yeah, if it goes too far toward panes of glass, then it just is a pane of glass now that you write on with a Sharpie.
That is the inevitable outcome.
My favorite thing was there was some high-tech paper that came out a while ago. I watched the video for it, and I was just sort of amused because they're like, it feels just like paper. But everything that they were using it for was just what you would use a piece of paper for. And I was like, just get some paper. It's right there. And they're like, it's searchable. I'm like, I have never searched for anything in any of my notes almost ever, except for when I was in college. That was like the one time when I needed to know where things were.
Notebooks are places where ideas go to die.
Or
not anymore with high-tech paper.
I think it's really where they go to be born.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And then you move on.
Yeah, you don't need the dregs of your idea farm.
A notebook is just an idea nursery.
So you sort of become the absent parent of your ideas.
Absolutely.
You birth them into this notebook, and then you're like, see ya, you're on your own now.
Well, really, you only take the ones that are sort of clamor enough for attention with you. You know,
and they go on and become something. So yeah, if you're able to search through all your notes, you're basically just now a trash panda.
Yeah, yeah, you got a bunch of trashy ideas in there.
The trash panda notebook.
And you might think they're delicious because you're like being a trash panda, but you're wrong.
You're look at this apple
you're
core
just
of an
sifting
idea.
through garbage. That's all you're doing.
Use paper.
All right, on to industry news. As much as I want to keep talking about weird notebooks, we got a podcast to get through.
Let's go.
Some sad news. Telltale Games,
makers of The Walking Dead and other stuff.
And some other stuff too. Minecraft story mode. They got some other things. Tales from the Borderlands.
Wolf Among Us.
Wolf Among Us made a bunch of stuff.
So they were based in San Francisco. They had over 250 staff, like 270 something.
And I think they've laid off nearly everybody except for a 25-person skeleton crew.
Yeah. So they laid off 90% of their staff roughly, so 250 people.
And I think they just launched that other Walking Dead game.
They just launched some stuff. They have some things in the works. They're canceling several projects.
All I know is I saw an image of like a 15 to 16-year-old Clementine, and I was like, my father instincts are kicking back. She made it. How is she doing? You know, she okay?
It's time to check in with Clementine.
But yeah, so they made this a big announcement, and I didn't know that they were, of course, you never know. This is the weird thing about I guess just watching games be made or watching even like entertainment products be made is that you never know what the inputs going in and then the situation sort of in the creation of the output are, because you only see the output.
From the outside, like it looks like a successful studio. And I think there have been some articles in the past about some workplace issues and stuff, but as a
lot of crunch.
Yeah, but as a company making a product, it looked from the outside as if things were going fine because they're making these high quality things. They've
been
published by big players.
Yeah, nobody made stuff like that.
They owned the niche completely. Yeah. People seem to be buying it, seem to be into it. And the important thing is always your ROI. So if they're just dumping money into this thing, then it doesn't matter how successful it looks like they are on the outside because they're spending all of their resources.
Right, because the I is just as important as the R.
Yeah.
In ROI.
Yeah.
So good luck to anybody who was affected by that. Sad.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk as well about the people being let go with no severance.
Yeah, that was the wild part.
They have I think a week on their health care, and then they're on their own. So none of that stuff. And I think
so somehow Telltale wasn't able to see this coming and plan for it.
Yeah.
Well, it may also
suddenly
this may have been a gray rhino situation.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of that you should not necessarily default to explain something away with malice when incompetence may B that like may also explain it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Either way, like somehow just suddenly they were like, oh no, now we have to fire 90% of our people this very moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that seems to be what happened, because if you were being responsible about it, and whether that means not an ass because you knew what was happening, or not incompetent because you knew what was happening, either one. If you knew that was going to be happening, then the responsible thing to do would be to try to figure out, like, okay, how much severance can we get people? Let's let them know ahead before that actually happens, so we can give them 2 weeks or whatever.
But that would
a little bit of a window, but that would mean you would have to know it was coming.
Yeah, and that would mean that if you were setting aside enough money to give severance for 250 people,
it's crazy.
It's a lot of money.
Right. Then that means you have to also decide, to close down the studio earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think probably with most of these things, it's usually the case that you have some big project fall through, or some sort of behind the scenes investment or something like that.
Because think about their monthly expenses for being in San Francisco with 250 staff.
I don't want to think about it. I'm getting shivers.
What would that even be? Yeah, that would be at bare minimum if they're not paying their people very well.
Which in San Francisco is likely because
hard
no
to-
amount of money.
Relatively, you can't be. But yeah, so at minimum, you're talking millions of dollars per month.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, yeah. Best of luck to everybody affected by that. That's a huge bummer.
Yep.
Mhm.
Fortunately, there are 1 million game studios in San Francisco, so
Yep.
maybe there will be
They'll find some
stuff. So that happened, and then last but not least in the news, this is probably the biggest news item of the week, is that Adam's wife grew some ghost peppers. I don't know why this happened.
I don't either.
What sort of
There's been reports in the papers that this has been an ongoing incident.
When we were setting up our garden this year, so last year we grew a bunch of serranos.
That's what I grew this year.
And you thought
They're popping
this
off like
isn't
crazy.
enough.
And I didn't understand the sheer number of serranos that come off of a single pepper plant. So we still have some a lot in the freezer, because we just kind of take them out and use them every once in a while. But so this year, Jenny my wife just loves peppers for whatever reason. She loves spiciness. She's got childhood experiences that brought her up in the fire of
The Spice House.
the spice house. And so she just wanted to grow some peppers. And so last year I was like, I can't eat anything above, basically a serrano. So I was like, sure, let's do some serranos and I can practice, work out my spice. And then this year, when we were out and about, we saw at some store we were at a little baby ghost pepper plant. And my wife was like,
you were like, that's
I
so
want
cute.
this. And
I looked up with its dewy eyes.
Yeah, and I said, I was like, we can't. What are we going to do with this? Because it's going to make peppers that we can't eat, because these are chemical weapons.
You can't even look at them. Your eyes start
You can't even
burning
look
from 10
at
feet
them.
away.
And but she was very insistent that although all that was true, she wanted it. And so we got it. We planted it. It actually it wasn't doing very well. It just kind of sat there like at the same size for basically like half the summer. And then it was like really hot, so I wasn't going outside as much, but someday I came back out and this plant was a tree now. And
it was like, Father,
it got
I have grown.
And it got so heavy that a couple of weeks ago, it just kind of fell over. So it like half unrooted itself, but it's still alive, which is actually what happened to our serrano plant last
I
year.
don't understand how this happened, because like my serranos are normal size. I feel like they didn't try to leap out of the ground.
I don't know. There's something
going
about
on
that
in
patch of dirt, I guess.
You got like a magic
You got the
dirt
best.
patch.
And so this thing has easily 100 ghost peppers
Oh my
grown
God.
off of it. Almost all of them are green right now. But yesterday I went out and checked on it because it was looking a little droopy, because it was, collapsed on the ground, hadn't rained for a little while, and it was kind of hot. And so
And
when
it's
I went out
covered
to
in
go
peppers.
water it, and it's just dripping with these things. And I went to water it, and I saw a bunch of little red things, and I was like, oh God, they're coming.
Beanberries.
so I pulled off the red ones and the really orange ones, and I was like, okay, I guess it's time to figure out what this is all about. But like I took them in the house and I washed my hands immediately, and I didn't want to even touch these things. Then
Did you go into the shed and get some like long, sort of like graspers?
I had gloves on already, so it was fine. I did later check. I tested the outside and just like licked the outside of one just to see if it could get through the outside, and it does not.
It does
Okay.
not.
I thought I felt a little bit of something, but that also could have been
So the
my
skin,
fear.
so the skin of the pepper is mostly just coated in fear.
Yeah, it's just coated in fear.
Okay. But no actual sort of capsaicin.
Yes. So then my wife got really excited. She was like, "All right, it's time. We're gonna try this tonight," which I was not ready for, but I said, "Okay, we will do this." so she cut it open, pulled the seeds out, and then cut the tiniest little baby sliver off the side, and then she ate it. And so my wife can handle the spiciest stuff I've ever experienced in my life, and then And she's like, ate it for a little while, and she goes, wow, that's really hot.
And
it was this tiny sliver, and I was like, oh my God. This is going to be a nightmare. And I didn't want to do it, but I was like, I need to know though, somehow, so.
This is a train wreck situation. Like you gotta understand. You gotta look at it. Mm-hmm. You gotta know it.
So we cut off another tiny little sliver, and then I was like, I'm not willing just to eat this because I'm not going to do that. But so I said I just poked it with a knife. So I just had it like picked up, and it was just, it came to a tiny fine point because it was just this little tiny sliver, and I just touched that little point to my tongue, and immediately just felt this burn just go through, and it was bearable because it was such a tiny amount, but I could really feel it. And so like if I had just eaten that little tiny sliver, it would have probably made me like, turn white and start sweating immediately. And I probably still could have been okay, but it was a tiny sliver.
You're a smarter man than I. If I would have just ripped one of those off, they'd be like, let's go.
Oh my God. It's so scary. There's, of course, we had these little peppers out, and I was like, we got to put these in the fridge so that, our cat doesn't bite one on accident, because then we'll just take her to the vet probably. Mm-hmm. And then I texted Sam and Seth, and I was like, all right, I got some chemical weapons. Do you want these in your mouth? Promise me you don't fucking eat them whole or something. And stay away from the seeds, because I imagine those are real bad. Mm-hmm.
It's actually the core of a sun, I believe, collapsed into an organic structure.
So I don't know why these were invented by people.
Why did you do this? Why
has this been done?
Why have you brought pain?
And they're even, because ghost peppers, so I looked it up, ghost peppers were the spiciest peppers in the world in 2007. They've since been superseded by a few more. The current champion is the Carolina Reaper. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because the ghost pepper is kind of cutely named. It's spooky, right? But it's kind of cute. And it even kind of looks like a little cute ghost, But then all the next ones have these absurd, like one of them is called like the something venom, and the last one is the Carolina Reaper.
The Carolina
Reaper looks crazy.
Yeah, it's bright red, covered in these little bumps. Yeah, and then it has this hook-like claw on the bottom. Like it's like, even if you survive the spice, I'm still gonna murder you. Yeah. So I will say, I was just wondering, why invent this?
Why have we done
Why
this?
do we climb Mount Everest? Why do we do anything?
Because it's fun. You just, you'd rather feel pain than nothing at all. Man.
Oh, God.
And I think ghost peppers are a good measurement of it.
But now we got to figure out. I have some ideas on this, and we'll hit this a little bit later. Okay, questions.
But so we're trying to figure out what to do with these, though, because now we've got at least 100 ghost peppers.
You should take them to the farmer's market, and you should just sell them, but also sell them as sweet peppers.
No, but the thing is, like, it is such a legit chemical weapon that
you couldn't do that.
It's not a prank. It's really not. It's actually
you're hurting
chemical
people.
warfare. Yeah,
I don't know how to describe this, but I'm getting more excited about just eating one as you talk about it.
So Adam sent
promise
this
me
text.
you'll at least try it in small amounts first.
Adam sent this text yesterday saying, I'm bringing these peppers in. I don't know why I'm doing this, and I also don't know why I have them. Please don't eat them. I'm bringing them in. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm probably going to eat one. So I gotta look up something and kind of get a sense of what I might be getting myself into. So I just started looking up YouTube videos of people eating ghost peppers.
Do they eat them like whole?
Yeah. They'll just throw in their mouth and chew it, And it's like,
which means they're getting the seeds and everything. And if you don't know, the seeds are where all of the horribleness lives.
Yeah. And they're like, it's the ghost pepper challenge. And so people always do this thing where they throw the pepper in their mouth and they chew it, vigorously, and they swallow it and they're like, I don't feel anything. And then within 8 seconds, they get this look on their face where you can see the regret just kind of forming. And it's it's coupled with that feeling of, I can't undo this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I've done this thing and now I have to ride this out, And I saw a video. This girl eats this thing, and then she seems okay. She's like, "Oh, this is hot. Oh, it's hot," but she's still okay. And I fast forward to about 15 minutes in. Oh yeah, and
I felt it for half an hour. After that.
And she is weeping. Like she has like all of her whatever mascara, makeup. Like it's just down her face. She has like black streaks down her cheeks. Her lips are red and puffy, and she's just like chugging milk and just like sobbing in between.
Yeah, people go to the hospital for this stuff.
Yeah, I was like, it's maybe no, maybe I don't want this.
I think it's interesting to try, but only in the sense that like
I'm not eating the whole thing.
Yeah, don't eat the whole thing.
Come on,
start at that tiny amount just to see, because like that's kind of an interesting way to sort of test your own, capability, get an understanding of how hot this thing really is, just to experience the world. But the idea of just just taking something that people tell you, hey, this is the spiciest thing in the world. Eat this, and then just doing it, just popping that fucker in your mouth. And eating it.
I think people
that is
want
crazy.
People want stories.
It's fun.
This is the same as somebody saying, "This is the worst thing I've ever smelled."
Here's the thing,
and you go, "Let me smell."
Yeah, right. Here's the thing. I got a good story out of just licking a tiny sliver of it, and it's so much more dramatic.
But think about how much better the story would have been if you just
I ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
I mean,
it'd be a good story.
It'd be a very costly
good for
story.
You. Yeah.
If you came into podcast today and you had these
and I'd
kind
be
of
like, I
swollen
spent $2,000 yesterday going to the emergency room.
You're like, and then the story would end with, "That was a real hot pepper."
Yeah,
and it was very.
And
hot.
that was yesterday, so now it still has to come back out. Would be the end of that story.
That's sort of a cliffhanger, at the end of the story.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for next episode of My Body Hurts Everywhere.
I wish I was dead.
I wish I was dead. All right, on to some questions. These questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bscotch.net. If you'd like to get your question onto a future episode, get over there and then do that. First question comes from Krown. Hey, all. So I just want you to know how much of a fan I am and that I really wish I could make it to Shenana Con 2018. But I can't because it was too last minute, as I'm sure you understand. Yeah, we get that.
Totally.
Yeah, those are bad. So definitely have another one. You mentioned about building some PCs. What did you shove in there other than the massive cooling fan?
Well, there wasn't much more, honestly.
That was basically it.
Just a big old fan.
We got, what were the specs? Give us the rundown. 16 gigabytes of RAM.
But real fast, though.
Yeah,
very boring.
Yeah, 16 gigs RAM, 4 gigahertz processor, giant ass fan, 1 terabyte hard drive, and GTX 960.
That's a video card.
Video cards are now incredibly expensive because of all of these Bitcoin miners thinking
Bitcoin. For a while, I thought it was fun, and now I think it's ruining everything.
Yeah,
I wish everybody would just fucking stop.
Largely, it's ruining video cards, although it's doing a great number on Nvidia stock.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Good
for them.
If you bought some of that a while ago, that's probably much better than having bought Bitcoin.
Although that's true. Although I think from talking to Nvidia staff, they seem to be a little bit bummed that their actual target audience, people who
no
play video
longer
games,
gamers.
can't buy their product that they make.
At least somebody's buying it.
At least somebody is.
What they can do is they can sort of squirrel away all this Bitcoin profit that they're making, and then reinvest that once everybody who's all in on Bitcoin.
If they stop, maybe this is just the world we live in now.
My God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Building a PC is fun and interesting, and you can look up all kinds of YouTube videos on it and stuff like that. And it seems really complicated, but everything is labeled.
The thing I actually found most amusing about it is how hard you have to shove various pieces into the motherboard.
Yeah, you basically just punch them in there.
It really seems like
feels bad.
Like you're going to shatter the whole thing, even when you put the processor in. They have like this crazy,
crazy
crank vice thing. So you put the processor in there, like, be very careful. This is the brain of your machine.
And then you just crush it.
And then you literally you just press the shit out of it into the computer and lock it in place. And it's like, where's it going to go?
And then they're like, okay, you got to put this sophisticated cooling fan on. But first, smear this weird silvery goo on it.
Thermal paste.
What?
What am I doing that for?
It sort of makes like a seal so that the heat transfer is complete, passes from the processor.
And then you take the RAM and you just shove it in there. And when I was trying to put the video card in, I turned to Seth and I was like, I can't seem to get this in. He was like, no, you just gotta
really get in there.
Put your whole body weight on just get it in there.
There's also apparently now a jackhammer outside.
Oh yeah.
So that's a thing.
There's I don't know if these mics are picking it up, but it's pretty loud.
Not. Yeah, so we'll just hope for the best for the rest of this recording, I guess. Because I think this jackhammer's going nowhere.
It's hilarious. I can actually feel it kind of through the floor.
Maybe they're trying to get some RAM into a motherboard next door. Maybe that's just what's happening.
That's not a jackhammer. That's somebody just building a PC.
It's a rapid RAM placement device.
All right, next question is from Anonymous. Hey, it's PeanutEanut. So not anonymous, kind of a lie there.
Yeah.
Just kicking off this question with a full-blown.
I've been duped.
Yeah. Just wondering, are there any game modes that won't be in Levelhead?
Battle Royale?
Oh, yeah.
I'll just go ahead and say it.
Well,
we're not. Well,
no real-time multiplayer. Sorry, no real-time online multiplayer.
None of that.
Which basically precludes Battle Royale because we'd have to get 100-person same screen. Which we could do just by changing the integer to 100. So technically, it is possible.
You would need a incredibly giant USB hub dongle to get 100 controllers.
How many USB devices can a single computer take? Is there a limit? There must be a limit.
There must be.
Because you can use dongles.
We have a few dongles. We should try this.
You just start chaining them together.
Yeah.
This is like plugging surge protectors into surge protectors.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. This is what they're for.
Nothing bad.
Really, what you need to do is you put so many controllers.
You would need
into
powered USBs though to power all the
Well, that's what I was thinking.
controllers.
Yeah, if you put so many controllers in that you siphon enough of the power off of the machine can't run anymore, and then you take one out, so you get like maybe 16 controllers. I don't know.
But you can power your USB
You
dongles.
could just do that.
though.
Yeah.
So that means technically you have infinite power and infinite dongle space.
Yep, infinite dongle space.
How many-
That's one of my favorite games.
I do wonder how many we could get in, how many people we could shove in at the same time. But I think another game mode that I saw some people talking about, I believe the Discord, was like an idea of a basketball or some other sports game. We're not doing that
No.
because, I mean, that's ridiculous. But also,
Well,
no. The reason being, so the one thing we're keeping our eye on for the game modes is making it such that if you have a game mode that it's not just about, so basketball, for example, is actually just all about sort of fighting people. It's just about fighting people, actually, right? Which, if you want to play that in any sort of single player context,
yeah, basketball is basically MMA
yeah,
fighting.
that's from what I understand. Yeah. Throwing elbows.
And there's a
It
ball
only
in there,
works-
but nobody knows
yeah.
what it's for.
It only works in multiplayer.
Yeah, and so we did talk about a brawling mode as well, which basically was the same idea where you actually fight people, but the reality is that we don't necessarily want to set that up because most of those levels are not playable in a single player context.
Although
Huh?
we could just have, instead of having, because part of that debate wasn't about like, well, do we have this available in the editor and like and editing levels that are brawlers or so like really weird
making
concept and
sense.
stuff.
Yeah.
But not every mode has to appear in the editor, and not every mode has to appear in a meaningful way in the campaign. So kind of like
Where does it go then?
So there was some
Nowhere.
Final Fantasy game. There was some Final Fantasy game from forever ago. I never actually
Okay.
played it, but I watched one of you two play it, where there's this kind of game that you play in a big sphere of
Blitzball.
water.
Blitzball.
Final Fantasy
So,
X.
yeah, it's just like a cool game that
It's
is.
3D soccer.
But so imagine if that thing just like had to be multiplayer when you were in there. It was, and let's say it wasn't required for normal gameplay.
Mhm.
It was just a thing that you could go do if you had multiple people around. Then now there's this cool, interesting, weird game you get.
Well,
to
that
go
was
play.
actually the only way we talked about it, was if we did a brawl mode, you wouldn't be able to build brawl levels.
Right.
We would just build a few arenas,
yeah.
and then you
and
could just go fight
you
your
could,
friends.
Like, well, yeah, when you're there playing co-op with your buddies, you could go into these other game modes and just play those things.
Yes, I don't
Not
know.
everything has to be available in the editor.
That's true. But I don't know. Do you guys want that? I don't know.
Everybody wants everything.
That's
I think that's
true.
fair to say.
The question is, do we have the resources to do that and the extent of everything else we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't know. We'll figure that out.
But also, that if people are really into Levelhead and are really digging it, then and so that we decide we can invest the resources in working on it a bit longer after it launches, then these are also things that we could add post-launch.
As a $50 DLC.
Yep.
Yes.
I was thinking a
Business.
$5,000 DLC.
Yeah, we want to keep it pretty.
But this is because that way we can do it in VR also.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You know, VR just costs a lot.
So you put on your VR headset and then you just play the game normally.
I mean,
It's a 2D
obviously,
game,
yeah.
so you just that's it.
Yep.
It is VR compatible in sort of the strictest
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm.
So okay, let's do it. Our next question comes from RetroBananaManNL. We haven't heard what the spouses thought of PAX and if it had some kind of an impact. Ooh,
It impacts.
Impacts. Did it have an impact, Adam?
My wife had a great time. She loves video games, and so that was fun for her to see that environment. I will say PAX is so fucking busy
It's crazy.
that
it's kind of like going to Disney World and you just got to stand in a line to do anything.
yeah,
good.
and so that kind
Yeah.
of makes it really hard. And so we hadn't actually experienced this, from this side as a participant before, and I would honestly say I probably wouldn't do it again for me personally.
I don't think it's my thing.
Yeah, it's just so many people that you just can't really do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of the experience that our spouses also had, except
They sold too many tickets.
they did, yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
If they cut it down by a fourth, maybe.
Well, even on the last, because we went on Monday, which was the easiest day because it was the least busy. But even still, it was just packed. So you're just kind of like navigating through this enormous number of people, and it's all. So all I know is that, like I said, my wife had a great time and is glad that she went. And
It was a good experience
it was
to
a
have
good
had in the
experience,
past.
but I think she and I, and probably everybody,
Yeah.
are not super pumped about necessarily doing that exact thing again. But I
about
think
right.
I think I would be interested It kind of reminded me of how fun it was to go to conventions, because we used to go to quite a few conventions for a couple of years. And the smaller ones are a blast.
Yeah.
Because you can like move around. There's not as much to do or see, but you can actually see and do those things, which actually probably means there's more to do and see. You know? And just the vibe of those places and how excited everybody is who's there is all really fun and interesting. So it kind of made me want to go back and start attending some of these things again. Not necessarily to demo, but just to go visit.
One of my favorite conventions that we did was XPO in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Which
it was tiny.
It was tiny and to be honest, poorly attended.
Yeah.
It was in a giant it was in a giant convention center, you know, like a big expo floor and stuff. And they had done a lot of work to get a lot of developers. This was the first year they had done it, and they had done a lot of work to get tons of indie developers there. And there were so few people on the convention floor playing the games that like somebody would come by, check out our game, and then we could just chat with that player for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. And we could go chat with the developers for a long time.
It was great.
Yeah. It was just because it was a true, you know, people meeting people experience, which was not so in PAX, nobody can meet anybody. You don't get to have a human interaction at all. It's just purely about sort of the broadcast fandom. And that's it.
And if you want to go talk with another developer, you know, you start talking to them, and all of a sudden, like a fan just swan dives into the booth, and then now that's going on. So then the developer of course has they're trying to set up with the demo,
right? Because they're there for fans and press, and so you know, for developers to talk to each other, it's actually a very hard environment to do it in.
Yeah, we did. So I think my wife had a good time as well. She's just an excitable person, so she's loving the general energy and stuff. We played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes as a couple, which is a great couple game. So that's
or a terrible one, depending on what kind of couple.
That's true. So that's the one where you defuse a bomb. One person has a giant paper binder with all the rules in it, and then the other person has a bomb, and you have to be like, okay, it has this stuff on it, and then she finds the bomb, and then you defuse the whole thing together. So it was really fun. We had a few of those fun experiences. We did that. We played a few other games around the show floor, including some co-op ones, which were fun. But that was interesting because wandering around as a player, then I realized that, like we always talk about how games that demo really well at conventions are not necessarily games that sell well, because a lot of the times the games that demo extremely well are strict local co-op games. So I played, I think, 3 of those at the convention center, and they're always full. There was always a line for them.
Everybody, because people go to conventions as a group.
Yeah,
and so they want things they can do with their friends.
Yeah, so it's so fun to sit down and hang out. And then the question is, does that translate into sales at the end of the day? And generally, no is the answer. So it was sort of interesting because you can see how the different contexts could make you feel like as a dev that you're attracting all these players, when in reality it's the context of the experience that's attracting the players, but it's not going to lead to anything in terms of sales and stuff. So
there's other factors that have to be in place.
Yeah. So I think it was we chatted about it. My wife and I chatted about it a bit afterwards, and she said it was very, very fun, but again, kind of hectic. She did get a Pikachu, which was good. So we got stuff
like a real one.
Mm-hmm. And we got home, gave it to the dog. He immediately started biting its tail off. So we're like, "You go." Yogi used
it's like a real life Pokemon battle.
So that Pikachu just hanging around the house, which is nice. But yeah, it was good.
Nice. Yeah, about the same.
Yeah,
about the same. Yeah. The packed nature of it was just a little bit. It's a lot. Yeah.
I would be curious about the other PAXs because I know PAX West is the busiest.
They call it PAX Prime.
Yeah, it's like the main one, and so I have to wonder if the other ones are just more bearable from a player.
Yeah, I think size-wise, I think East is also huge. Still, it's still. I mean, it's not like 80,000 people, but it's still like
probably big.
They're gigantic. And then South, I think, is the smallest one.
Okay, and that's in Austin,
but it's still probably like 20 or 30,000 people, I would guess.
Well, and there's this interesting problem. There's this interesting sort of push-pull thing that goes on for the organizers of the convention, because you don't want your convention to feel like XPO did for us.
Right.
You don't want it to seem like nobody showed up, right? So this is something that like sports teams want to do, politicians want to do, anybody who relies on creating an atmosphere of enthusiasm.
Right.
They want every room to be as packed as possible, right? Like a concert, musician, whatever it is. And so it's weird because that creates the best sort of like brand strength for your
not
event.
necessarily the best user experience.
But it's basically the worst experience.
Well, it does feel good walking into, right?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of energy.
Whoa, yeah.
And then once you're starting to do stuff, you're like, well, that's imagine going to Disney World and being one of 8 people in the park. You'd be like, this seems weird.
It's creepy, in fact.
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Right. So instead you feel weirdly better about going there and then waiting 3 hours in line to go on a single ride because you're like, this ride's going to be so good because there's 3 hours worth of people ahead of me. You know, it's kind of like paying more for a game and then, you know, using the price to determine that it's going to be good, even though it's worse for you to have less money, but psychologically it's better for you to spend more money on the thing so you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from doctordino. Dear Butterscotch devs, hope your morning coffee was warm and stuff. I wanted to ask if Levelhead will have some kind of long-term level up system. For example, collecting coins and over time unlocking different level components or perhaps different character abilities. Something to work towards. Thank you for your time.
So I guess this kind of brings us to the campaign question, really.
In the context of the campaign, yes.
Yes. Keep a note on it that this is not built yet, which means that
also correct.
Everything will change.
Everything will change. But the general idea is that so the thing we're trying to do with the combination of the story, so yes, there will be a story, and the platforming itself and the level building is actually to tie all of them together inside of this idea that the Bureau of Shipping is, you know, it's creating this Levelhead division, which is all about training these robots. And so what you do through the campaign is you'll be playing through, you know, subsequent stages just like you would in a normal sort of platformer that sort of scale up in difficulty and throw more components at you. And then at various points, then you'll sort of unlock batches of those editing components that you can then use. So it's not like something, you know, and I know in Super Mario Maker, originally they had you just wait. So it was every day when you came back, then they would unlock another couple items. And I think it was like a 9-day process. And then they changed it because people complained about it to be because there's no agency there, right? You can't, if I like play the shit out of Super Mario Maker, I don't get stuff as I'm learning how to use it.
You see a good level and you're like, oh, I want to do that thing. It's like, well, no.
You just have to wait.
You're 6 days away arbitrarily from that.
So ours will be similar in the fact that you might see a level that like has all sorts of crazy stuff in it. If you hop on the Level Hub or whatever else, and you won't be able to build it yet, but there's a lot of agency there because you'll know.
That just means you got to beat
you'll know
enough
that
levels.
It's in the campaign structure. And then we have plenty of ideas for how to sort of get that out. But the idea is to tie all those things together such that you have this really, we think end up just kind of at the end of the day, a uniquely cohesive system where the story is all about building up this department, right? To build these levels. Beating the campaign levels actually gives you the tools in the editor, and then the editor is where you go and build levels and then put them up on the hub. And all of that's done in the context of you being a Bureau of Shipping employee. So this is not just like an editor that you're using randomly. It's sort of, we're trying to really bake it all in and make it really cohesive.
There's a story behind it.
Yeah.
And as far as the incentives go, this is something that we downloaded and played a lot of different games like this, especially on mobile, because there are a lot of them. And most of them do this kind of a thing where they try to incentivize playing other people's levels through some kind of a coin system or whatever. Right. So maybe like you can put coins in your level and then you need to collect coins in order to build levels, right? So what you discover then is this completely kills the online play component because every level you see is called coin farming, best coin farming level, coin farm, because all anybody wants to do is get as many coins as they can now. So we've actually we're actually taking a lot of care to disincentivize
just everything about
all of that,
everything about shared levels.
Yeah, so that the whole point of doing it is for fun.
It's to do
as soon as we attach rewards to playing other people's levels, or like let's say you could put something in your level like some kind of a hidden, star or whatever, and if you get enough stars, then you unlock some new thing. Well, we have now handed that progression mechanism off to the community. And one thing we know about players is they want to win the most with the least amount of effort, even though that's the least fun thing to do, but having the rewards is something people want, right? So then you would see every level would be called, star farm, get your stars, and you wouldn't be able to find any good levels to play.
Correct.
So instead, so we build the progression system. We design that to be fun and engaging and have a sense of growth.
Yeah. And I think that'll be, frankly, I think that's going to end up being, again, one of those really unique offerings because there are plenty of games that handle it, that are similar in that way, that handle it in that particular, with that particular design choice, as opposed to saying, you know what, we know how to build levels. And before you get to build levels, you need to at least experience some good ones and then have it all be kind of bound together. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be.
This also makes me think of another interesting consequence of not letting people name their levels, like we've talked about, right? Or they have to use our random naming system
and our tags,
and our tags. Yeah, because that means that now it's much harder to game the system in really any way. Because a part of our rationale was that it's impossible to summarize the experience of playing any given level in a title anyway. So a title doesn't do much and can't do much to tell a player what a level is about. But it can be used very effectively as a signal for certain kinds of things. So if somebody wants to signal, hey, this is for
star farming.
Yeah, this is for star farming. This is for whatever. They can use titles that do that. But if they're not even allowed to have a title like that, then we now have suddenly that's fine.
And we now have the random naming of levels in, and it's actually quite hilarious.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because it's also
we also have random naming of users in Rumpus now,
which also feels fantastic.
Yeah,
so did that actually happen? You sent that out.
I Thanos to everybody.
Okay, so let's talk about it because this is interesting. So because we did get a note from someone too when we discussed this idea of destroying usernames.
Yeah,
and why, and especially for a small team like us, why it would be the case that we would actually want to
not allow people to name themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And why, as a user, of course, there's going to be some chafing because of that. But the question is, what is the purpose? What is actually the problem here? Because I think it's something on the design side we're taking a lot of care to sort of handle, but it's gonna rub some people the wrong way.
I mean, and it is
right up until they use the system and they get hilarious.
Yeah. And there will always be some people who are mad, but our job here isn't to make everybody happy. It's to design the best user experience that we can for the majority of the people who we want to make games for.
And which has the least propensity for abuse.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's because, and that's just a consequence, right? Because abuse destroys the other part of the design. So, because abuse is basically just somebody going against your design intent, right? And so any mechanism that you have for users to do something without strict limitations is now an avenue for abuse.
Right. So think about how PUBG banned 30 million people.
Or whatever. Yeah.
300. I don't know.
Some outrageous number, whatever it was.
Any number is ridiculous. But yeah, they're banned. They have to ban people by the millions for hacking and cheating in their game.
Yeah.
Which, of course, ruins everybody else's game experience.
And so that's why you have to have that. And so there will be people who will always be upset that they're not allowed to cheat. I mean, there are people who send death threats because they're not allowed to cheat, right?
Because they got banned for hacking.
Yeah. Or whatever. And so there's always going to be those people. But the thing is,
let's talk about in the context of usernames, because this is not necessarily that situation. This is I want to be able to call myself doctordino, for example,
or whatever.
Right.
And so that's just another place for abuse because players will abuse each other by having horrible names.
Correct.
And so and I think probably on average those who do have horrible names aren't even thinking about what the impact of that on other people because that's not what's going on at all.
No, I think usually you're just ha.
Yeah, it's funny. These words are funny because
because they're horrible.
Because they're horrible.
That's why people get their first Wampet and Crash Ends and they name it Buttface or something.
Yeah,
like that,
exactly.
I mean,
it's not a lot of there's not a lot of creativity involved. But there's also not active hostility involved, right? But there are also some people who purposely choose names with the intent of offending other people because they know that people will see their username in some context. But both of those cases create a bad user experience for everybody else. And so you basically have sort of, you have a few paths here. So one is you just say, whatever, it's the internet.
Which is what most tech companies do.
And
now we're seeing the results of that.
As a consequence, you end up
working out great.
Yeah, you end up building yet another toxic place on the internet. Or you can say, okay, we think this is really important, so let's have a heavy moderation team and so on. And we'll have all these systems in place so we can catch bad actors and punish them. And so then you have to have punishment mechanisms. You have to
hire staff. So
we know staff. You have to have robots. You have to do all these things.
Yeah, we know that because people can upload videos and photos, then Facebook has a staff of 16,000 people who have to review a piece of reported content every 4 seconds.
Yeah, so we could do that.
We could do that. That seems fun.
And so we're not willing to do the first because we don't want to make yet another bad place on the internet. That's not the kind of user experience that we're trying to provide. We don't want to do number 2 because we don't want to dump the resources into that. And so the third option,
have the resource. I think
we don't have them. Yes.
Yeah, we're 4 people. I mean, if Levelhead goes even just fine, you're going to have tens of thousands of people in it playing the game, and
easily 1% of them are being little shits.
Yeah, and if you want to just look at the time spent on that, that's just not it's literally going to crush the studio.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
We want to make games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the third option is to either just not have that concept, so not have no names or whatever, or have ones that are tightly within our control. So as in there is or is not player choice, but we actually somehow get to choose what the possibilities are. But the most important thing with all this is take a step back and ask, what are usernames for, right? Because what usernames do is they give players an opportunity to express themselves in some way. It gives them a sense of identity, right? So that they can basically attach an identity to this thing that you're providing.
So that way they feel unique. You know, they're like, I'm the only person named XXZX Legolas XXZX on my specific.
Right. And so, but that uniqueness is important because that's used for other people to identify them. Correct. Right. So those are the things that it's used for. And none of those things require that you choose exactly the name that you want. Right. You can satisfy all of those things that username set out to achieve by a system like the one we did, where we let you still make a choice and that you can keep re-rolling random names. But we don't let you choose what the pool of random names consists of.
It's choice within a constrained system as opposed to the generative nature of the entire alphabet.
Yeah. So it's a whitelisted possible set of combinations of things. And it's large. You could make 15 billion names with the system that we have. So you're almost definitely going to be unique in the name that you choose.
Almost definitely.
And there will be some, and sometimes you won't be, or because it's a first name, last name kind of system. So sometimes you have the same first name as somebody or whatever. It'll be rare, but it'll happen. But even still, it's basically a unique name now. So we've given you that. We've made it so that you can't be hurt by somebody else or hurt somebody else in turn by the choices that you make in that system. And so the end effect is that we've created a much better user experience for the entire pool of people by creating a designed experience. So not instead of one where we just say, hey, have a username, that's a thing that things do, right? We say, we have a reason that you have a name, which is like we understand what it's for. This design system that we have fully implements that
and makes it so you can't use it for that other thing you could use it for, which is hurting,
which is harassment. And so now we basically just take that feature away, which means that we don't have to moderate anymore.
Yes,
we don't have to. And I had already built a username reporting system.
And it took so much freaking energy.
Yeah, and there's a ton of code in there, and we still never quite figured out because then we have to figure out the algorithm for like, okay, given that people will abuse that too. So take a popular streamer, right? They'll go up, they'll start streaming their stuff, and then their fan base, because that'll come off of Twitch, which is a toxic.
The more visible somebody is, the more likely they will be reported for no reason.
Yeah, and so now I'm like, okay, this has to be a sort of a self-balancing mechanism. So I designed a thing to do this, but it's untested, and we'll only be able to test it when it goes live. And
so like,
oh my god,
can we not? I can guarantee you that every video that say like Markiplier puts up gets reported thousands or tens of thousands of times for inappropriate content, for language, for anything you can select.
Just by people trolling him.
People who are just like, I don't like this guy, and then they just report him trying to get his content taken down.
Yeah. And so that means that like as YouTube, you have to understand the probabilities of things. So you just have to look at the statistics across all videos and ask, what would be a really abnormal rate of these kinds of things so that we can then determine which ones look like they're real. Except you can only do that when you already have the data, which means at the beginning, you got to either let everything through or be overly pessimistic and let basically nothing through. And so that was a design I had to begin with, is an overly pessimistic system so we can keep the horrible people out at the consequence of just also punishing people who didn't do anything wrong.
Like the big thing for us is you want to be able to create a situation where someone, say, has a daughter or a son and they want to sit down and play some Levelhead together, and that they're just not going to see some fucked up stuff.
Yeah, there's zero chance.
You just have no interest in that being a thing.
So now you're going to play levels, a level called Hot Boot Mountain made by A Dupe Fairbonk. That's hilarious.
Which is hilarious. But the other thing that it provides is a stronger sense of sort of thematic cohesion.
Yes. Actually, one of the things we're excited about is the fact that we're giving you a name in our world.
Yeah.
As opposed to you bring in this whatever.
You leave your baggage at the door.
Legolas is not here. Legolas
that's from a different franchise.
Yeah, and so and again, this pulls into some of the narrative and stuff, and I think we'll be able to really cohesively push all this stuff together so that it doesn't feel like you're just sort of randomly choosing a name.
Yeah, I mean, I even wrote up some lore in our name generator. Yeah. So in the name generator, now if you go onto the website to bscotch.net and go to Rumpus to change your username, now it's called an alias, right? And that little code that you use is now called your BS code, which is, of course, Butterscotch Shenanigans, but it's also the Bureau of Shipping.
So that's your employee ID.
Yeah. So that's your employee ID for the Bureau of Shipping. And your alias is now something that is gifted to you by the Dusk Watchers, right? And so those of you who've played a bunch of our games, you'll have seen the Duskwatcher stuff referenced in Crashlands. And so this is, mysterious, shadowy.
They're basically the Illuminati of the
basically, yeah. And so now I just retconned some lore to explain why this is how usernames work in our system, which is that you have been named within the Butterscotch universe by members of that universe, right? So that's it. That's how it works. And now there's also a reason for because why should you be able to give yourself a new username, right? In the context of any other game you play or any other system, you just change your username all willy-nilly for any possible reason that you want to. But why? What does that mean, right? Because now you're changing who other people think that you are. Like all this stuff is now different. And so we can also add some lore to that and make that interesting and also give some reasons.
So now there's sort of a ritual that you do where you approach the Duskwatchers and you have to...
You offer them your current alias if it has enough power.
If you want a new name, you have to give up something in return. You have to give up your old name. So you sacrifice your old name to the Duskwatchers and then they'll let you roll a bunch of dice till you get it.
right. Yeah. And so by basically telling people this is part of the experience actually. That this has a design intent. Then we're still going to get some people who are angry at us because there's nothing we can do that doesn't cause that to happen.
I don't make things for angry people.
That's the thing. We're explicitly not making things for those people. Like very on purpose. This is not for that person. So if someone's horribly upset by the fact that they can't name themselves or levels whatever they want, that's a person we would wish that they just didn't buy our stuff and stayed away. Yeah, they won't.
Get out! Your money's no good here, angry Steve.
Yeah.
All right, we got time for one more quick question. This question comes from Razor39325. So that might be like a debit pin or what happened to the naming or zip code? I don't know. What happened to the naming scheme that you used back in episodes 111 to 116? Why did you do that in the first place?
Was that when we were
podcast?
We should probably tell people what is actually happening in the podcast because I think that's what it was.
Yeah. So we as you know, if you're a regular listener, our episodes are named after some bizarre phrase that sprung out of
a mouth,
whatever we were talking about.
A mouth, mostly.
Usually a mouth. So
the problem is it's kind of like naming levels. So we had this exact problem. We were like, okay, so the podcast...
We couldn't summarize the content of the podcast in a title.
Exactly.
So we tried to.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, well, the question was really, what is our audience coming here for? And we thought maybe... We know people come here from our games.
We were trying to grow the audience at that point.
Yeah. So the question was, if we actually name the titles as something that people can understand.
And even find when they're searching for something related to that on accident.
Right. How do I build a business?
Yeah.
Or how do I deal with this X, Y, or Z thing? So we usually took one of the questions, typically one of the more legit questions, and then made the title out of that as opposed to just a random word. It didn't seem to do anything.
I think, and I think this was a case of sort of us missing the forest for the trees, where we thought we want to grow our podcast audience. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's take a look at a shit ton of statistics. Let's look at search engine optimization. We also updated our artwork that goes on the cover of the podcast. We looked at spreading it out to more podcast services, and we updated how we did our descriptions. And we thought, if we sort of aggregate all of these changes, then we will start to see growth. We'll start to see the audience getting bigger and bigger. None of that happened because there's also a core part of the podcast, which is what it is. It's the actual episodes. It's the things that we talk about. And also realizing that before we released Crashlands, we were getting 30 to 70 listens per episode. It was down there. And then when we launched Crashlands, it spikes up to 4,000 or something like that.
It was 2,500.
Actually, the episode of the launch week was over 4,000.
Yeah, we've had a few that were over 4,000.
And then we missed a couple weeks because of the chaos of launch, and then we lost 2/3 of those.
We should
people.
Probably pre-record before the Levelhead launch a few episodes.
Maybe.
Just not necessarily to definitely use, but just to have them
on the back burner. And this is and it's something that it's obvious in retrospect, which is to understand why people are coming here. And we thought, well, maybe they'll stumble into it and then stick around, but they're coming here because of the games. That's kind of that's the starting point. And then maybe they heard about it from a friend who's a game developer or something like that. But largely it's these huge public events like a game launch that allow us to bring more people into the podcast.
So the podcast will grow basically once every 2 years.
Every 2-3 years, we'll get a few thousand more people.
And then someday it might get big enough that through word of mouth it can slowly grow by itself.
Yeah, maybe it'll hit a tipping point, but
maybe not.
Probably because our listeners are always steady, so that's nice.
People are coming back.
Yeah, we know that we're making a good thing. We don't know exactly how/why, but we know it's good. So we're just going to keep on doing it, and we'll just kind of let it play its course nowadays.
So then, and you might have noticed just for our studio in general that we switched over, sometime after that time when we were trying to like name podcast differently, whatever. Our entire studio ethos just completely changed, where we're basically just saying we're going to do things. We're still going to be careful about how we're designing stuff and why we're doing things and so on. But now we're really going to go back to focusing on what is fun for us to do. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the podcast, having a podcast series with just bizarre, fun titles is a hell of a lot more fun, like businessy, summaries of the entrepreneurial idea set that was included in this episode. That's not.
And the thing is, that's going to reduce our rate of accidental drop-ins by 3.74%.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? So
it's just like the random usernames thing,
Yeah.
I don't want to spend my time moderating usernames. I don't want to spend time listening to this, figuring out what's the lesson. I don't know.
Yeah. We got games to make.
How about past tense of meat? There's your lesson.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, and we also at that time we talked about, maybe we should change our approach. In our episodes, maybe we should change the structure of the episode to reach a broader audience. We should do this stuff. And I think we tried a couple different things.
Yeah. Well, we also got some feedback. We put up a form, a Google form that people could provide some feedback on the podcast. We're trying to figure out,
isn't it?
It's still up, yeah. There's a link on podcast.bscotch.net. So if you haven't filled that out and want to, it is very interesting to us just to see. But we asked a bunch of questions to try to figure out who's coming here, why, what are they interested in hearing? Are there parts they don't like, and so on? And of course, no one will be surprised that for any given part of the podcast, some people hate it. For some people, that's the reason that they listen to it. So,
right.
But the thing is that totally makes sense because people all came here and then those who liked on average what we were doing stuck around, which means that for any given subset of our audience, they don't like the same pieces of this thing. Mm-hmm. We can't optimize it in any meaningful way without losing people that we already have. Mm-hmm. So all we could do is then maybe get some new people, but those ones it would just be optimized for those people instead now. And, instead of the people.
Yeah, I think the best general note is people were like the technical stuff is interesting, but if we have episodes that are only technical stuff, which we have had in the past ones that had much more of like a 30-minute chunk about a very particular technical
that really
piece,
narrows the audience.
It's less interesting. So the only bent we've sort of made only slightly, I think, is just to include more high level. Well, include more life story stuff too.
Yeah,
because it's just fun.
Well,
talk about ghost peppers,
right? But keep things focused on sort of life experience, but then design intent behind things. So not necessarily the nitty gritty details of just what are the numbers involved, what are the algorithms used, none of that kind of stuff. But just keeping it high level so that stuff just stays conceptually interesting in a way that people can get no matter what their background is. Right. So that even if a particular aspect you're like not that into it, you don't have to listen to us drone on and on about the numbers and the details of the thing.
Yeah, and we're not very keen on changing the format of the podcast so that we would be talking about stuff that we don't actually care about.
Yeah, to a different set of people.
Correct. Yeah, we're going to talk about
larger.
Yeah, we're going to just talk about the stuff that we find interesting, and the experiences that we're having, and the kinds of things that we are trying to learn or gain from those.
And if you like it, then you just sit around the bonfire and hang out.
If you don't,
then just get out of here.
Get on out of here.
Though we would appreciate it if you know other people who would like it and if you brought them into the fold.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please definitely do that.
But again, one thing we've learned in all of our years is that word of mouth is totally bogus.
It's pretty weak.
Because when you try to get people to do anything, they almost never do it.
Yeah, but if you just steal their phone, download Pocket Casts, whatever, one of the things.
Yep, theft.
Yep. Well, you're still going to give it back, though, so it's
borrowing.
Fine. So you're going to temporarily steal it, which is also called borrowing. And then you're going to go to whatever app store is on that device, and you're going to download a podcast listening app, and you're going to subscribe to Coffee with Butterscotch.
That's what I'm saying. Who can do all this?
Then you're going to give it back, and you're going to say, I have given you the greatest gift.
And you say, next time you commute. Press play.
Just push this button.
And they're like, I actually just ride one of those scooters to work every day.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
And they'd be like, no, I listen to, like, here's the thing. It's fundraising week on NPR. And I really want to listen to.
Oh my God.
I
haven't had to experience one of those in a couple of years now, but I remember back my commute when I was working in a lab, it was every day I'd be listening to NPR just to get my news fix, and man, those weeks.
Yeah. Those are brutal.
Those are brutal weeks.
And you're like, even if I donate right now,
it doesn't impact anything.
It does not shorten the duration of this fundraising week.
That would be the
they started doing it. They did start doing that. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, where they'd be like, we can end this one early if we hit.
It's almost like holding people hostage.
They finally figured that out.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's the pain point, as they say in free-to-play monetization.
That's right.
Well, yeah. Public radio it uses that. Free to play.
It is free
to listen, but at a certain point, you got to pay to get through your own impatience.
Yeah,
so
get those totes.
Those tote bags. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producer, Fat Bard, for making us sound good. Thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can hop into our Discord server over at discord.gg/bscotch. Come say hello. And I will say, that thing is hopping right now.
Is it? I haven't got in there in the last couple of days.
We put out another ballyhoo, a mini ballyhoo about the Shenana Con.
Mini-hoo.
Which included in it said, be among the first to play this game by coming to the convention. But if you can't, because we know almost everybody who gets that email will not be able to, you can also just sign up for the abs, so that once we go into alpha or beta or whatever, you'll be on the list of people who might get in. And that little tidbit right there, brought a whole bunch of people into that form, into the application, which also requires a Discord and mentions our Discord server.
I didn't think about this.
I didn't either, but so we got starting yesterday. We just got a
Juicebox was overheating. trying
to announce everybody coming in.
We have a Juicebox robot in our Discord server that welcomes people into the server.
Yeah, you can also, he has his own little channel. You can go talk to him, so you can ask him roll dice for you. You can ask him about things in Crashlands. So if you haven't experienced that because you're not on our Discord yet, go to discord.gg/bscotch and just get in there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so if you're playing a D&D campaign and everybody forgot their dice,
you can
boot up our
dice.
Discord server and just say Juicebox, roll D20.
Or you can tell him to roll 3D20. He's got skills. He knows all about dice.
I think he's also got some tricks in there. Like if you tell him to roll a D0, he's got something.
If you roll a D0, I can't remember what he
rolls. He just says, shut up.
You can also tell him to roll a D1, and then he just throws down a Mobius strip.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
It's only got one side. If you ask him to roll a large enough number, then he just rolls some marbles.
He just throws some marbles.
Yeah, because they've got so many sides, they're spheres now. So.
Did you put that in there for real?
Yeah.
Juicebox is a sassy.
Because here's like
snarky damn
road. I had to put limits in there, right? Because I didn't want people to roll like 100 D1 million or whatever.
Juicebox would overheat.
Yeah, but I needed a reason for there to be, those limits in there. So
what if you roll a negative number? Does Juicebox handle that?
He does. I can't remember what he does for that.
He's probably real mad about it. He's very snarky.
What does he do? Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, you can play with Juicebox in his channel.
I just know that people ask him one of the most repeated questions is, what's the meaning of life?
Yeah, so I had to
deliver packages. It's so clear, so easy.
I did. It was fun because when I first put Juicebox into the Discord, then I could just see the kind of stuff people were asking.
Yeah.
So I went back and coded up a bunch of answers to those common questions, and I got to put that one in there and some other ones. So it's pretty fun.
It's sort of like machine learning. With sort of
only I'm the one learning, and then I tell the machine what to do.
Yeah, close enough.
Old school. That's old school.
Old school
machine teaching, you could say.
Yes.
Also, we do have a shop over at shop.bscotch.net. So if you would like to buy T-shirts, mugs, stickers,
we will have new Levelhead tees at some point in the future too. Those are in the works.
Are they?
Yeah.
Do we have a timeline?
No,
we do not.
So we don't do timelines.
Just keep checking it.
Yeah, just hit refresh
until it appears
every 5-10 minutes.
Just want to get you excited.
You'll get that. And also, if you'd like to send us something, we do have a mailbox, which you can find the address for over at mailbox.bscotch.net. And last but not least, if you would like to buy us a cup of coffee, you can do so at moneygrab.bscotch.net.
Actually, here's real last, but also definitely not least, is go to meet.bscotch.net and get into the Shenana Con.
Get those Shenana Con tickets, get your delicious food, get your delicious live podcast episode, and best of all, your delicious first look at Levelhead. In the flesh. You will get to play it. The end.
With your flesh.
Yeah.
With your flesh.
With your flesh pads.
Yeah. All right.
Let's get out of here.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.